This is a rhododendron that looks as if it's all green, but I've just been collecting some leaves from underneath it and a few that are growing on it because they're such beautiful colours. And I'll show you those in a minute in the studio when I'm back. But I did want to show you this. This is Mrs. Littlewhite. So Mrs. Littlewhite is a rescue hen, and she was practically killed when the barn opposite us was almost blown down, more or less destroyed in the hurricane in October last year. And she was soaking wet and really hungry, and I was sure she was going to die. So in the end, we managed to catch her and we brought her back to our place and we introduced her to our half a dozen hens, and she settled in really well after a little while. And now she lays us one beautiful white egg almost every day, and she has to go and do it somewhere special in a corner like this. I think she thinks that this way we won't find it, but she's wrong. Very independent little hen, so we're very proud of our Mrs. Littlewhite. Anyway, to get back to the matter in hand, I'm now back in the studio, and today we're going to do some leaf paintings, but we're going to do it something like this. This is my trial effort, and we're going to do an interesting background, which is easier than it looks, and then we're going to paint some leaves and berries over the top. And I'm going to use these what are they? Not hydrangea, rhododendron leaves as a good example. If you look at the colours, each one of these would make a lovely palette. You remember we did this the other day where we looked very closely at something and we did the colours from it. And you might even be able to match up one that you've already got. Like this one, for example. I did this from the spirea that I've got in the garden, but it could almost match this. This has got pink in it, and quinacridone gold and burnt sienna, burnt umber, little bit of what I would suppose this would be sepia. And on the back we've got different colours. We've got something like Naples yellow, perhaps, a little touch of green there in the middle in this vein. All sorts of colours on here, and I think probably most of them are in this example. So that one's nice. And then this one is another one from the same plant. All of these are. This one's still got lots of green in it. So that's actually almost exactly this. Yeah, so you can figure out what colours you want to use from looking very closely at your example. And I think it's really quite important actually to use something as a model for you to paint from. It's no good just painting out of your head. You can paint out of your head if you want, of course you can. I wouldn't even dream of trying to stop anybody. But if you want to learn how to mix colours and how to create a particular thing, you're going to have something to work from, I think. Now, I'm going to be using, for my paints today, I'm going to be using my Michael Harding paints, but any paints would do. And here I've got quinacridone purple. This is black. I've got alizarin crimson. Some people have problem pronouncing that word. It's alizarin crimson. Quinacridone rose. I've got azo orange here, burnt sienna, quinacridone gold, and here we've got azo yellow, and I've got a few other colours here. I've got these are neutrals from various sources. This is Holbein, and this is Daniel Smith. I always forget the name of that one. Buff titanium. This is this one. Jaune brilliant, and this is soft white. That's from Michael Harding. This is Holbein. This is Daniel Smith. And so that's the colours I'm planning on using. I do also have here Van Dyke Brown. This one here, which we probably will use. That's very similar to sepia. I think I've got sepia somewhere if I feel I need it, but I probably won't use that because what I'm hoping to do is to make a nice bright background and then do some texturizing on it using water and salt. So I probably want a bigger brush than this one. I used this one for my small trial one, so let me find a bigger one. Doesn't have to be a flat. This is a flat, 1/2 inch flat. Could use a flat. Could use a bigger one. Maybe I will, perhaps. Could use a round. Something like this would work fine. Or you could use a mop brush. Maybe I'll use the mop. Because for the background, you don't need any shape. You don't need to, you want to just basically cover the paper. So maybe we'll use this mop brush. This is one from my set that I made with Craftmo, but you can get others as well. This one is by Isabey. This is a squirrel brush that holds a heck of a lot of water. And they come in different sizes. I've got a smaller one somewhere. I tell you who does make them now at a reasonable price, because Isabey are very expensive. Being French, I think they're special. Can I get this out? Yes. Paul Rubens, this is a quill brush designed to imitate the French version here. I've still got my thing on my wrist. It's getting hot. Yeah, they sent me these to show to you, and they're quite nice. I think that would probably work pretty well. This is obviously far too big for this job, so I'll get rid of that. But I don't know, maybe I'll use that. Maybe I'll use that. Or maybe they sent me a bigger one, didn't they? Was this one bigger? Yeah. Okay, so let's get that one out. I think these are actually quite reasonably priced. They don't seem to have a very consistent method of wrapping them at the moment, but I suppose that doesn't matter. La-di-da. Okay, chat amongst yourselves while I try and get this out. I hadn't thought about using this until now. I would probably not put this back inside this container because I think it would frustrate me, but I am easily frustrated. Right, so this is a size 6 Paul Rubens. We'll see how it goes. So what I'm going to do, what I did in order to do this was I started with quinacridone gold, as I so often do, and I'm painting wet on dry, but we will be using plenty of water. If I don't like this brush, I will change, but I'm just going to put increasingly strong colours randomly going across the page. Oops, there's a hair. I think that might be one of mine. It doesn't matter how you do this, but I've gone from quinacridone to orange to rose, and now we'll pick up a bit of alizarin crimson. And we're just dropping it in with plenty of water. We don't need to worry about having too much water. Alizarin crimson with quinacridone gold makes a lovely rusty colour, so that's nice. And I might pop down to the burnt sienna here, which is a little bit darker, just a bit. So as you can see, we're just basically popping in all the autumn colours that we might want to see. And it's probably a good idea when you're doing this to sort of start light, get darker, and then perhaps end up a little bit lighter again. So I'll go back to the quinacridone down here. You could even put some yellow in if you wanted to. I've got this yellow here. So we won't play around with it too much, just get rid of the little bits where I didn't put any paint. We don't want it so that we've got any particular pattern. This is supposed to be more or less random, so that will be fine, I think. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to drop some water on. So I'll rinse off my brush, and because I haven't used this one before, I'll just try that out. I think those droplets are going to be a bit on the big side, so I won't use that for this. Perhaps I'll just use an ordinary round. Let me see. Try that again. Yeah, that's a bit better. So what I'm going to do, just wet my brush and drop droplets of water all over. Now, when the water hits the paper, it pushes the paint, pigments, particles away, so you get a pattern. So we'll put a fair amount of that on, hoping that the dots will be reasonably small. And we're not aiming for anything specific, just a good texture. Then I'll take my coarse salt and take a little handful of that, and then sprinkle that all over. Now, if you're impatient like me, you'll probably want to use the hairdryer on this, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. But you might want to leave it for a few minutes first to do its thing. What happens is the salt absorbs, because salt is hydrophilic, it attracts water to it. So it sucks up the water from around it, and then when it dries, after it's dried, you'll find that it leaves little kind of patterns all over the paper. So we'll let that do its thing. You can see where the salt's landed, it's already starting to suck up the water. So we'll probably let that get on with its job for a bit. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do next. When that's dry, which, you know, you could easily do this before lunch and leave it over lunchtime and then come back, finish it off with the hairdryer and brush the salt off, and then start to do the second layer of paint. So anyway, so that's what we have at the moment, and that's what I had here. It dries a bit lighter than it is when it's wet, as you can see. And then what I'm going to do is just a very simple design, and I'm going to use the same colors plus some purple. When you add purple, this kind of purple, quinacridone purple, to any of these reds, you get different shades of brown. These browns, I didn't use brown on the top, I just used the quinacridone gold, not the burnt sienna, the quinacridone gold, quinacridone rose, mixed with purple to get these shades of brown. And then I just very loosely put those on. Then I used, I'm not sure if I used the quinacridone rose or the alizarin crimson, but you could use either for the berries. And then the shadows under the berries I did with quinacridone purple. So I'm a very big fan of quinacridone colours because they are transparent, and so they allow the colour to be brilliant, really. And also they let the colour underneath shine through, which means that you get another dimension to your painting. So, so when this is dry, what we will do, what you could do, is put a line for a twig, draw your twigs on here however you want to do it. I tend to be a bit boring with mine. They always end up much the same, but you can probably have more original ideas. And you'll just then attach leaves, not real leaves. We'll draw leaves onto our twigs. So it's nice actually to have real ones, but once this is dry, you'll be able to sort of even play around with the real ones that you've got and think to yourself, oh, I wonder if I could do something, like this or whatever. And it might get you started. So I'm going to have to leave that to dry, as I said, because if I put the hairdryer on it, it might not work all that well. Okay, so this is dry, and now I'm just going to collect up the salt. Has a funny feel to it, doesn't it? Salt. I'm just looking for my brush. I have a brush here somewhere. I do. Somewhere. Oh, I'll use some. Oh, here it is. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? You give up and then suddenly it arrives. So we'll just brush all the salt into the middle. You probably could reuse the salt, to be quite honest. I don't think it loses its ability to suck up water. But so we'll just collect that all together. I'll put it in a saucer. And just to check we've got it all off. That's it. Doesn't matter if a few bits get left on, but now we can see that we have a lovely texture for a background. It's absolutely gorgeous. I really quite like that. So I have in front of me an iPad with one of my paintings on it from before. This one was entitled How to Paint Easy Autumn or Fall Leaves and Berries with Gold and Ink. And this was done 2 years ago, almost exactly. September it was, end of September 2022. So I'm going to use this just as inspiration to give me a few ideas about how to do this one. Well, it won't be the same. You might want to have a look at that video if you're interested. Now I need a brush that has a fine enough point on it. So this Drawwell brush probably will be okay. I don't like brushes that don't come to a point. So I think this one will be okay. And then I'm going to just basically paint on a nice stem, you know, a stalk, a few of them, and then we'll add leaves to that. And this is not something I haven't done before, or to put it another way, this is something I have done before. But it's very relaxing and easy, and you don't need to, you know, worry about anything. Don't have to worry about perspective. Don't have to worry about drawing. There's no drawing involved in this one. So I'm just using quinacridone gold and a bit of burnt sienna, I think that is. And then we'll just paint some lovely loose leaf shapes. This colour here is orange, azo orange. That's really nice. Different manufacturers give their paints different names. So, for example, I think azo orange sometimes is called transparent orange. You can look that up. I think Schminker, for example, have a colour called transparent orange, which might be azo, might be the same. Let's have an alizarin crimson leaf, because sometimes on trees, certain kinds of trees, you get very, very strongly red, don't you? Very strong red leaves. And then on the other hand, sometimes they go very brown. So we can have a variety. So this is like our main twig. And you can see that you can see the background through the leaves, and I wanted that to be the case. And then I'm going to pick up some Van Dyke brown, which is a darker brown. And I think I'll put one here in the dark colour. I think I want to make that a bit darker still, so I'll pick up some purple and mix that with the brown, and that will make the leaves even darker. And I could just make my life easier by going for a very small brush just to drag down the stems, the stalks of the leaves. I can do it with the point of this brush, I could do, but sometimes it's a good idea to make your own life easier, isn't it? Yeah, so now I'm going to put in the background, take another one up here like this, and then I think I'll go for a bit of purpley colour here. Just turn this round. It doesn't matter if your leaves go off the paper, like this one. And we can put our stems in. And something else that you can do is you can just drop a blob of paint at the bottom of your leaf and let that bleed up, and that will give you back runs and all sorts of things like that. And you can do that on these ones too if you want. You can just, not necessarily on all of them, but on some of them. You could take a much darker colour. Of course, it's starting to dry, but that doesn't matter. You just add a bit more water. And you get a very varied set of colours like that. Let me just take that out a little bit. Okay, and then we could put some independent, some separate ones if we wanted to. And this is an example of purple over orange, because I'm just picking up lilac here. And it goes brown straight away. There's no way out of that. Could leave those ones separate. They don't have to be fixed to anything. We can put some veins in later. And we could go up the top here, have a branch coming in from up here. And there is this one trick that we often use, whereby we take a sharp object, like for example a feather, and into the wet paint we draw a line, and that scrapes away the paint and gives us an indication of a vein. And sometimes if it's very wet still, you get a darker line. And if it's drying, you get a lighter line, like that. And you can do that on all of them if you want. And sometimes if you've got a little blob of paint there and you do that, you'll get a painty line. So that works really quite well. Saves you having to do it with a brush. So there's that one used for a feather. And I think I'm going to do my berries now, and I think I might do some of them in a dark purple, which I'm going to add a bit of black to. So they're like elderberries. And rather than having the bright red and putting a dark, like I did on this one, we had the bright red and then I put dark shadow. Because I'm going to do these ones in black, I'm going to leave a little bit of light. So do the opposite, yeah? And don't worry about making them too regular. You can make them more convincing looking. You just miss part of the berry off. That's the best way to do it. So they can be quite uneven. And I'll put one or two more up here. Okay, and then what next? Probably best thing to do here at the moment is to let it dry, and we could come in with some gold or something like that if we feel we need it, or we could bring in another branch over the top of this so that we get yet another layer of colour. But I will have to dry it off first. So it often happens that you get to this stage in the painting and you think, I don't know what to do next. I don't know where to put things now. I don't know what to do. So if you feel that way, I think that one of the things that is useful is to try to cut out pieces of coloured paper, or in this case, leaf, and construct something so that you can tell. Because this is my answer to not having a very good visual imagination. I do not have a very good visual imagination. So therefore, I struggle very hard, very badly with knowing what things are going to look like when I do it. Some people don't have that problem, right? But I think actually probably more people do than we are aware of. So that's too long, too hard, too tough, too thick. So we'll just cut that. And I'm just going to try out, I've made some leaves here. I'm going to try out some positions for leaves. And it's a bit fiddly, but I think it's worth it because you can tell straight away whether or not it's going to be a good idea to put some more leaves up here, for example. Is that going to work? You can, change the colour of them by using different leaves and cutting different shapes out. And yeah, I mean, you see what I mean? Do I want more up there? Could it take it? I think it could. We could take some really dark ones. We can try really dark ones down here, for example. So if you're like me and you struggle with knowing what things are going to look like once you've done something, you can do this kind of thing. And then what I would do definitely, when I'm happy with what I've done, I'll take a photograph on my camera and then I can take the pieces off of the painting and paint them on. I like that. You see, I wouldn't have thought of that, but that just kind of happened. And do we want to put more down here with this I think this is for me quite a revelation, because, as I say, I've spent my whole life struggling with not being able to imagine what things are going to look like when I change them. I could never imagine what an item of clothing was going to look like on me, for example. My mother didn't have that problem at all. She was very good at putting together outfits. But not me. Hopeless. So that means, you know, you don't enjoy shopping, you don't enjoy fashion and things like that so much, because you can't have that picture in your mind of what you're going to look like when you've got that dress on and so on. So apparently there are quite a lot of us out there who are suffering from this thing. And then I'm going to just do a couple more round berries and see whether I want to put any more up there. These leaves are quite soft. They don't break when I try to cut them. If they were very dry, they might not behave themselves, but they're being quite amenable. So yeah, I think I probably do, and I probably want that one to be a bit smaller. Can you hear the doves in the distance? You see, I've added a couple of little dark ones down here, and immediately I can see that looks better. Now I can see it. And it was better down there too. It was better down there than it was, and I probably want a berry or a tiny one in there. Yeah. That's very exciting, actually, to suddenly realize that you can solve a problem. And I can see also now that I need to put a little bit more in the way of veins on those ones. In fact, they should be a little bit darker. So I'm going to take a photograph, and then I'll take these things off and I will paint them in. Okay, so I've taken a photo of this, which is here. The colour's not brilliant, but it gives me a record of where I've put the different things. And I've also sent it to my iPad so I can see the colours on the screen in front of me too. But this is definitely a useful record. And I'm going to put that in front of me as well. I've got one of these desk easels on my desk now, which is very handy because it means I can look at a reference sort of up in front of me whilst I'm painting, which really, really helps. Okay, so I'm a bit sad. I'm going to have to take these off of here, but I can see what it's going to look like now. And let me do them one by one. How about that? Why don't I just do them one by one? And we'll do this one first. And we've got, I would say, that's pretty much Van Dyke Brown. So we'll pick up some Van Dyke Brown and we'll put in a nice dark brown leaf. It's called A Fantasia. A Fantasia. That's what it is. And this one, I'm going to add some black to it and make it darker. And then the next one is more yellowish. So we will go with something like quinacridone gold mixed with a bit of buff titanium. So put that there. And then, because that doesn't show up very well, we'll darken it with some dots of Van Dyke Brown. So that's the first one. It's exciting, isn't it? Okay, then we have another one up here, like very similar. So same kind of colour. Same kind of arrangement. And then this one is going to be a bit trickier, but I think I'll just go for it. So we want some nice rusty brown there. And the quinacridone gold is perfect for this. Maybe we add a little bit of yellow to it, but we need it to be reasonably strong. Otherwise it won't show up. And we go back to our burnt sienna here. And I think the important thing is that it should be reasonably dark. And this one down here. And then another one here. Okay. And now we need our two berries here. And down here, again, dark, can overlap a little bit. Those of you who don't suffer from aphantasia will probably be thinking to yourselves, what is the matter with this woman? Why can't she just see what it's going to look like? But those of you who do, and there are more of us than people want to admit, and I think there is a genetic factor, but also something to do with using computers a little bit too much as well. Okay, so I'm going to try to put in a few veins. Not with that brush though. I need a more pointy brush than that. This is a brand new one. Should be good. Up here, I think we want something. No, darker than that. And this one. And this one. And I did want to put one. Whoops. Don't do that. And I think really we've come towards the end of our journey for the day. It is getting close to lunchtime. So that's that then. What was I going to say? Yes, so that's a good way of deciding whether or not to add more to or less. We've got some falling leaves here. We've got some sort of spraying out a little bit down there. I wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of my little cutouts. And once you get to this point, you could still say, maybe I need, maybe I need still more, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to put a couple more up here. I think that looks good. And a couple more here. And you can go on and build up your painting without making any terrible mistakes. I wonder how many famous artists had aphantasia. I wonder. Or maybe in order to become a really good artist, that's something that you can't afford to be suffering from. But we have the technology now. Couldn't do that before, could we? You couldn't just take a photograph of your work and have it there ready to be copied, and it's just not, it wasn't possible. So for all of the disadvantages that there are, and there are many, there are some advantages too. Is that a robin? I have to ask Merlin who it is that's singing outside. Right, I'm going to stop now. Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do put a like, put a comment underneath the video if you possibly can. And visit us on Patreon, please, and perhaps become a member. Because we do special videos on there, exclusive content for you each month. So I won't go on and on about that. I'm going to leave this now, and hopefully you enjoyed it and have a go yourself this autumn. So I'll let you go, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye. Silly girl. She thinks I'm going to steal her egg, but she's quite right. I think she thought she was going to get away with it, hiding it there.